Monty, once again from DPL Surveillance Equipment. As I mention all the time, we're a full-service surveillance and security equipment company. We have lifetime guarantees and warranties on all the products, 24/7, 365 tech sales and customer support. And just as you would imagine, I'm doing my typical morning chores and while bringing to you this podcast. And we're reviewing some of the articles and different things that I've put away, and now I'm trying to figure out which ones I want to present to you guys. And this particular one seems to be kind of interesting. It sort of reiterates what we Bitcoin enthusiasts are talking about in terms of why the current economic system seems to be unraveling and what that looks like from the perspective of the real estate market, from the perspective of foreign investment in the United States, from the perspective of people who run businesses and who make a living selling real estate or running businesses overall here in the United States. Who's spending the money, who has the money, and who doesn't. So it's always good to know, again, who your primary customers are and why one set of customers may be more important than the other set of customers. So let's take a look at this article. Before I get into the article, just want to make sure you guys understand we have 24/7, 365 tech sales and customer support, as I mentioned, and we have the largest video library of products that not only can you buy, but you can rent and lay away. And you can rent them or lay away the products as well. And we have a huge articles directory, articles and podcasts and blogs, etc., just like this one, or a podcast just like this one, where you can just at your leisure kick back and just listen to the audio if you want, and not have to worry about watching a video, and learn about all sorts of different things: economics, finance, cryptocurrencies, anti-terrorism, cybersecurity, health and fitness, you name it, medical discoveries, all sorts of things are what we're talking about. Now, we revamped the website. I have to let you guys know that we revamped the website. Looks very nice. Lots of functionality, very easy to navigate. Our top-notch, world-class developer, I have to tip my hat to him. He really did a good job in terms of making sure that the website comes up. You can navigate it easily, find the products, sort the products by popularity, by newness, by all sorts of different things. Just an amazing job overall. It's been a long time in the works, but finally got it up and running. It's still an ongoing process in terms of tweaking and refining. But I think overall, a lot of you guys are going to go to the website and you're going to find out that it's really a top-notch website. And if you have any comments, questions, or concerns about it, let me know. I think they did a very good job. Now, this particular session is all about foreigners buying property in the United States market. Now, some year-over-year comparisons, just to put things in perspective, there was a 21% decline in the amount of investment in home buying activity. In other words, the Canadians, particularly, and the Chinese invested 21% less in the United States real estate markets. Now, you may want to ask yourself, why was there such a drop? This was the largest drop on record, as stated by one official from the National Association of Realtors. Now, there's a few things which led to the decline. One of the things was Chinese capital controls and tariffs particularly tariffs against the Chinese and the Canadians. Trump is scaring a lot of these foreign investors when it comes to them making long-term investments. Real estate is not a small investment. Real estate is a large and a long-term investment. When you invest millions of dollars in real estate, you typically want to make sure that there's not going to be some issues whereby you're going to lose your money, or your real estate project is not going to get funded, or for some reason buyers aren't going to be able to purchase your property. Okay, so right now Canadians and Chinese, they just aren't sure whether or not they can make the long-term commitment, and a lot of them aren't making the long-term commitment. They're pulling back. They're trying to figure out whether or not they need to hold off or not. Let's see here. There was $121 billion invested in the fiscal year ended in March, and as I mentioned, that's down from $153 billion the previous year. That, again, as I mentioned, that was the largest decline on record, according to the National Association of Realtors. Well-heeled investors with a lot of money, were investing in Manhattan, Seattle, San Francisco, Miami, Orange County, California, and see, a lot of local buyers were being squeezed out by these wealthy foreign investors, which says a whole lot about the purchasing power of the locals in the United States market. In other words, if the locals are the people from the United States, if they have to get down payments and they have to get financing, and if they spend a lot of time haggling with you, then that's not as attractive as compared to people from Canada or China who have all cash offerings, and they also can close these deals quickly because it is all cash. So that makes a big difference if you're a seller. If you have 10 or 15 buyers, and a lot of them have cash and they're from Canada and China, and you have a number of Americans who have to get financing and have to qualify and tie up that property for months and months at a time, that's not an advantage for you as a seller as compared to the foreigners. So there's definitely something to be said about the quality of the transactions coming from overseas, or the money that's coming from the overseas foreign buyers as compared to United States citizens. Now, the prices are really, really high, which is one thing that's causing the decline, and a strong dollar, and not to mention rising interest rates. But political tensions definitely, along with the tariffs and such, is not helping at all. According to Lawrence Yin, chief economist at National Association of Realtors, just a discussion of the trade war and the rhetoric against foreigners may have dampened some of the enthusiasm to buy property in the United States. The housing market is already slowing, especially for developers of high-end condos, for instance, some of whom have heavily marketed their units to foreign investors. So this is really revealing and not very good, mainly because, see, a lot of developers have been pulling back from the low-end development area of starter homes and such, because there hasn't been a market there for a while, right? But when you have a situation on the high end where the developers are going to be pulling back as well on the higher end units, again, because a lack of foreign investment by the Canadians and the Chinese and some of these groups, then that's a double whammy. That's a pullback on the high end, a pullback on the low end. See, one of the things that drives economic expansion and activity is real estate. When people aren't buying real estate, then a lot of the trickle down uh, effect doesn't happen. You don't go to the store and buy appliances and plumbing materials and landscaping materials, and you don't hire contractors. So there's a ripple effect when you have a pullback, for instance, in the housing real estate market, because all of the ancillary services and different other people, vendors and suppliers, they don't get that additional business. So that doesn't bode well for the United States economy, definitely. Um, and what else? This might be the first time in my career that I'm seeing more Chinese sellers than buyers, said John Chang, a broker at Ingo and Volkers in New York City. Um, Mr. Chang talks about how more sellers are cashing out as compared to getting new buyers. When he goes back and forth to China, which he's cutting back on his trips to China, now he's getting more sellers who are trying to cash out as compared to new money coming in. It's staggering, he said, of the negative coverage, including editorials saying now isn't a safe time to invest in the United States, and articles chronicling real estate developments funded by Chinese investors that have gone bankrupt. So this is John Chang of Ingo and Volkers out of New York, talking about his concerns. Chinese buyers remain the largest purchasers of U.S. homes, but their purchases fell 4% from the previous year to $30.4 billion. Purchases by Canadians, the second most prolific purchasers, dropped 45% to $10.5 billion. So a 45% decline from the Canadians alone is a very big difference. So that's kind of revealing. Existing home sales have fallen on an annual basis in 5 of the past 6 months, but buffeted by rising prices, a long stretch of low inventory, and rising mortgage rates. In addition to the decline in purchases by overseas buyers, is adding to the market's woes. Part of that softening is foreign buyers pulling back slightly, said Mr. Young of NAR, National Association of Realtors. Just so you guys know, the median local existing buyer spent about $50,000 less as compared to the Chinese. Chinese, because they have more money, which is revealing, they're buying houses that are $439,000 on average for the median price purchased by the Chinese, as compared to Americans or locals from the United States not being able to afford those houses. They're spending $50,000 less than that median price of $439,000. Chinese are mainly buying in California. We got strong universities in California, large agent community, which is contributing. Carrie Lynn, an agent at Douglas Element in New York, said she used to conduct more than half of her business with Chinese purchasers, but hasn't traveled to China in 6 months. She has shifted to finding local clients and helping Chinese clients sell what they already own. Capital controls also aren't helping the Chinese. Chinese are facing capital controls, which means they can only take $50,000 out of the country, and they're required to report this to the banks and talk about what the money is used for. Tuition is okay for taking the money out of the country, but buying real estate generally is not okay. So this is what the we Bitcoiners talk about all the time. When your country is getting so desperate that they limit the amount of money that you can take out of the country, that's a problem. That's basically saying, look, we control all of the money, your money and all of the money, and we'll tell you how much money you can take out of the country. When you have Bitcoin, for instance, and we talk about this all the time, repeatedly, you have control over your money. It's your money. You can send money from point A to point B across the world, anywhere, anytime, without worrying about government intervention. So make sure you guys understand that capital controls is very real. It's happening in the United States. It's happening in Canada. It's happening all over the place. So take possession of your own money with Bitcoin. Chinese investors, let's see, they're nervous about the rhetoric out of Washington. Canadians primarily buy vacation and retirement properties in Florida and Arizona, and they're pulling back. Also, strong American dollar, tensions, trade negotiations, etc. are causing a problem. Brent Lithwood, a broker in Florida, said Canadian professional investors are taking a wait-and-see approach, and retiring baby boomers are simply scaling back what they purchase. This is kind of revealing because retiring baby boomers in the United States, they're cutting back overall in all sorts of categories. So it looks like the locals are the people from the United States aren't able to pick up or offset the differences from the lack of investor money coming out of Canada and China, which is not good. I mean, if we can't support our own local real estate markets, and we're supposed to be, according to Donald Trump, booming. We have a booming economy, right? 4.1%, and everybody's working, and everybody's making a lot of money, and everybody's happy. But it looks like we can't support our own real estate market because without the Canadians and Chinese, it looks like you get $30 billion less activity, and no one is picking up the slack. And developers on the high end and low end are cutting back on development. So obviously, Donald Trump doesn't have his head screwed on right if you think you can have a situation where high end developers and low end developers are putting up less and less, are doing less and less deals, or putting up less and less construction. Something doesn't make sense. Okay, either the people in the United States can pick up the slack or they can't, but you can't have it both ways. Anyway, the political uncertainty destroys investors' ability to make long-term investment decisions with confidence, and we are seeing this uncertainty rear its ugly head, says Mr. Lethwood. He's a Florida. He's in Florida, and he's a Canadian professional, and he's talking about Canadian professional investors. He's a broker in Florida. So it looks like, just to wrap up this session, it looks like this is just another indicator that there's a few things going on here. We need to make sure we understand that the current economy really has some very fundamental flaws and such associated with it, because we're dependent so much on foreign investors, and the United States citizens, or people from the United States, are not able to spend the type of money to support the type of real estate activity. If you're a seller, you have less and less buyers. That's not an advantage. That's a disadvantage. And if you're Chinese and you have a situation where you're afraid to invest in long-term projects in the United States, that's another issue. That means the government can come in at any time and start talking about crazy things and just affect your investment, right? That's not good. So we need to take a look at what is the matter with this picture in terms of having so many things affect our ability to earn a living and have a strong economy, especially people who talk about this and talk about that, tariffs, talk about the Chinese, talk about the Canadians, label the Canadians and the Europeans as a threat to national security. These things are going to affect your local economy to a great extent, as we can see in the real estate market. So anyway, we're going to conclude this session. And as we like to say at the end of every session, keep your eyes open, keep your ears open, and be careful out there. And we'll talk to you guys later. Have a great day. Thank you. Take care. Bye.